My name is Rashid Ahmad Khan. I am 36 years old, and I was born in a small town in northern Pakistan. If you're watching this, I need you to promise yourself one thing before you decide whether to believe me or not. Don't judge this story by the first few minutes. Listen until the end. 2 years ago, I would have laughed at anyone who told me I would one day speak openly about Jesus. I would have called them deceived. I would have argued with them for hours using both the Qur'an and the Bible. But then I died, and everything I thought I knew was shattered. If someone had met me before that day, they would have described me as disciplined, intelligent, and completely devoted to my cause. My friends admired my confidence. My enemies feared my determination. I wasn't searching for money or fame. I believed I was serving God with every decision I made. Looking back now, I realize that a person can be completely sincere and still be walking in the wrong direction. I was raised in a conservative Muslim household where faith was not simply part of life, it was life itself. Every morning began with prayer, every evening ended with religious discussion, and every decision was measured against what I had been taught since childhood. My father was respected in our community, and from an early age I learned that defending our beliefs was one of the highest callings a person could have. I never questioned it. In fact, I embraced it with all my heart. As I grew older, my passion only intensified. While other young men dreamed about successful careers or comfortable lives, I dreamed about becoming someone who could influence people. I wanted to shape minds. I wanted to convince others that our movement represented the future. Before long, I became known as an activist who could speak with confidence, organize meetings, and persuade people to follow the path I believed was right. Unlike many people around me, I did not want my opinions to rest on ignorance. I wanted to know exactly what Christians believed so I could challenge them effectively. That determination led me to read the Bible from Genesis to Revelation. I didn't skim through it. I studied it carefully, taking notes, comparing passages, and searching for contradictions that I thought would strengthen my arguments. But something unexpected happened. The more I read, the more I found teachings about forgiveness, mercy, humility, loving your enemies, and praying for those who persecute you. Whether I agreed with those teachings or not, I could not honestly deny what I had read. The Bible consistently called its followers to peace, compassion, and reconciliation. I respected that, even though I refused to accept its message. Whenever someone misrepresented Christianity, I corrected them, not because I believed it was true, but because I believed arguments should be based on facts, not lies. The strange thing was that, while I acknowledged the peaceful message I found in the Bible, my own heart was becoming darker. I carried anger everywhere I went. Every disagreement felt like a battle. Every conversation became another opportunity to divide people into allies and enemies. Hatred slowly became part of my identity, and I mistook it for zeal. Eventually, my role as an activist changed. I no longer wanted only to debate ideas. I wanted to recruit others into the movement I believed would reshape the world. I traveled, organized gatherings, and encouraged young men to embrace the same determination that burned inside me. I spoke with absolute certainty, convinced that history was moving toward a great global conflict, and that our generation had been chosen to prepare for it. Every news report about violence or political instability seemed to confirm what I already believed. Instead of seeing human suffering, I saw signs that my expectations were unfolding. The more conflict I witnessed, the more convinced I became that the future belonged to those who fought hardest for their cause. I never stopped to ask what hatred was doing to my own soul. The greatest deception I lived under was this: I believed I was defending God, when in reality, I was becoming a prisoner of bitterness. I thought I was changing the world, but the world had already changed me. I had no idea that the journey I was so confident in would soon end in a violent explosion. and that the one I least expected to meet would be waiting for me beyond death. There are moments in life that seem ordinary while you're living them, only to become the dividing line between who you were and who you will never be again. The morning I died began like any other. The sun rose over the mountains outside our town. The streets slowly came alive, and people went about their routines without realizing that by nightfall, my name would be on a list of the dead. For months, the atmosphere in our region had become increasingly unstable. Armed clashes were no longer shocking. They had become part of everyday life. Explosions in distant villages, military checkpoints, rumors of attacks, and stories of retaliation spread faster than the truth. Fear had become so common that people learned to hide it behind normal conversations. To me, however, the unrest was something entirely different. I believed it was evidence that history was moving exactly where it was supposed to go. Every conflict strengthened my conviction. Every headline seemed to reinforce what I had been telling others for years. I became even more determined to travel, speak, and encourage those who listened to me to remain committed to our cause. Looking back now, I realize I interpreted every event through the lens of my own expectations. I saw confirmation where I should have seen warning. A few days before the explosion, I received a message from several men I had worked alongside for years. They wanted me to accompany them on what they described as an important mission in a remote area affected by ongoing violence. They believed my experience as a speaker and organizer would help encourage others who were beginning to lose confidence. I accepted immediately, not because anyone forced me, not because I was afraid to refuse. I accepted because I genuinely believed this was the purpose for which I had been living. Before leaving home that morning, I kissed my wife goodbye and smiled at my children. I still remember my youngest son asking if I would bring him back a small toy from the city like I usually did. I laughed, promised him I would, and walked out the door without realizing it would be the last time they would ever see me alive. The journey lasted several hours. We drove through villages marked by damaged buildings and abandoned homes. Burned vehicles still sat beside dusty roads like silent reminders of battles that had already been forgotten by the rest of the world. Every checkpoint delayed us. Every distant sound made everyone in the vehicle look toward the horizon. Yet none of us spoke about fear. We had convinced ourselves that courage meant refusing to acknowledge danger. As we traveled, we talked about the future we imagined was coming. Some believed the world was on the edge of a massive religious conflict. Others believed the growing unrest across different nations proved that a decisive confrontation was inevitable. I listened carefully, adding my own thoughts with the same confidence I always had. If anyone had asked me then whether I had any doubts, I would have answered without hesitation. None. Not a single one. Hours later, we arrived near our destination. The air felt strangely heavy. Even the usual sounds of birds seemed absent. I noticed an unusual silence settling over the area, but I dismissed the feeling as nervousness. We stepped out of the vehicle and began walking toward a group waiting to meet us. Then everything changed. A flash brighter than the sun exploded in front of me. The earth shook beneath my feet. The sound was unlike anything I had ever heard, a violent roar that swallowed every other noise. The force of the blast lifted me into the air as though I weighed nothing. I remember feeling intense heat for only a fraction of a second before my body slammed into the ground. Then, silence. The pain disappeared instantly. I opened my eyes expecting to see smoke and chaos, but instead, I found myself standing several meters away from where my body lay. At first, I couldn't understand what I was looking at. Men were screaming. Soldiers were rushing toward the wounded. Thick black smoke covered the sky. Pieces of metal and debris were scattered everywhere. Then I saw him, a man lying motionless beneath broken concrete. His clothes were torn. His face was covered with blood. One side of his body was badly burned. It took several long moments before I realized that man was me. I tried to run toward my body, but my feet never touched the ground. I shouted at the soldiers that I was alive. I screamed at the medics to listen to me. I reached for one of my closest friends, but my hands passed straight through him, as though I no longer belonged to the physical world. For the first time in my life, I experienced absolute helplessness. I watched soldiers carefully lift my broken body onto a stretcher. One medic pressed desperately against my chest, while another tried to stop the bleeding. Their mouths were moving, but their voices sounded distant, as though they were underwater. Everything around me seemed to slow down. The ambulance arrived, and I watched them rush me to a military hospital. Somehow, I was both following and observing at the same time. I cannot explain it even today. I simply knew I was no longer inside my body, yet I remained completely aware of everything happening around it. Inside the emergency room, doctors and nurses worked with incredible urgency. Machines beeped. Orders were shouted across the room. They inserted tubes, administered medication, and performed every procedure they could to save me. I watched one doctor begin chest compressions. Another prepared the defibrillator. Clear. My body jumped violently. Nothing. Again. Clear. Another shock. Still nothing. Someone called out the time. Another doctor quietly shook his head. Standing there, I expected anger. I expected confusion. Instead, I felt something far more terrifying. Every certainty I had built my life upon was beginning to collapse. I realized I had crossed a boundary. No argument, no book, and no debate could explain. And as the voices of the doctors faded into the distance, a darkness unlike anything I had ever known began to surround me, drawing me somewhere I could no longer resist. The darkness that surrounded me was unlike anything I had ever experienced. It wasn't merely the absence of light. It was the absence of everything familiar. There was no ground beneath my feet, no sky above me, no sense of time passing. Every earthly sound had vanished. I could no longer hear the voices of the doctors or the machines fighting to keep my body alive. I was completely alone. For the first time since I was a child, I was afraid. Not afraid of dying. I already knew I had died. I was afraid because every belief I had trusted throughout my life suddenly felt too small to answer the questions now standing before me. As I stood in that overwhelming darkness, I became aware of a light in the distance. It was unlike sunlight or fire. It didn't hurt my eyes. It didn't cast shadows. Instead, it seemed alive, as though the light itself carried peace. The closer it came, the more the fear inside me began to disappear, replaced by something I had never felt before, a peace so deep that no human language could adequately describe it. Then I saw him. I cannot fully explain his appearance, because earthly words always fall short. His presence was more powerful than any king I had ever imagined, yet there was no pride in him. There was authority, but it was joined with compassion, holiness, but without cruelty, strength, but without violence. The moment my eyes met his, I knew exactly who he was. Jesus. No one introduced him. No one had to tell me his name. Somehow, I simply knew. I fell to my knees without anyone asking me to. Every argument I had ever prepared against Christianity disappeared in an instant. Every debate I had won meant nothing. Every speech I had delivered was silent before the one standing in front of me. I wanted to speak. I wanted to defend myself. I wanted to explain why I had lived the way I did. But before a single word left my mouth, I realized something that shook me to my core. He already knew. He knew every thought I had hidden, every conversation, every lie I justified, Every moment of pride, every seed of hatred I had planted in someone else's heart, nothing was hidden from him. Then, without speaking aloud, it was as if my entire life unfolded before me. It wasn't like watching a movie. I relived every moment with complete clarity. I saw myself as a little boy, innocent and full of curiosity. I saw my parents teaching me. I saw the decisions that slowly shaped the man I became. But this time, I wasn't seeing my life through my own eyes. I was seeing it through the eyes of the people around me. I felt the pain my harsh words caused. I felt the fear in those I intimidated. I felt the grief of families torn apart by hatred. I experienced the weight of every careless sentence that encouraged bitterness instead of compassion. For the first time, I understood that ideas are never just ideas. They shape hearts. Hearts shape actions. Actions shape lives. I had believed I was serving God. Instead, I had often been serving my own anger. The realization broke me. I began to weep, not because someone condemned me, but because, standing before perfect holiness and perfect love, I finally saw the truth about myself. Then the scene changed. I saw countless people walking different paths through life. Some carried resentment for decades. Others devoted themselves to revenge, believing they were justified. I watched hatred spread from one heart to another, like a fire consuming a forest. One wounded person wounded another. One act of violence inspired another. Entire communities became trapped in cycles that seemed impossible to escape. I realized hatred never remains contained. It always demands more. It always destroys more than its target. And eventually, it consumes the person who carries it. Then Jesus looked at me. There was no hatred in his eyes. No desire to humiliate me. Only truth. Only love. Only an invitation I never expected. Without speaking with human lips, his message became clear within my heart. Hatred cannot heal hatred. Violence cannot produce lasting peace. The human heart must be changed. Those words reached places inside me that no sermon, no debate, and no argument ever had. I suddenly understood something I had missed during all the years I spent studying the Bible merely to argue against it. I had read the words, but I had never allowed myself to consider what they were calling people to become. I had examined the pages without examining my own heart. Then I asked the question that terrified me. What will happen to me? I knew I deserved judgment. I knew I could not hide behind my intentions. I knew excuses carried no weight in the presence of perfect truth. For what felt like an eternity, there was silence. Then I became overwhelmed by a love unlike anything I had ever imagined. It was not a love that ignored truth. It was a love that exposed the truth so completely that healing could begin. Again, the message became clear. You still have a choice. I couldn't understand. I had died. How could there still be a choice? Then I saw my family. My wife sitting beside a hospital bed with tears streaming down her face. My children praying. Doctors refusing to stop trying. Friends believing all hope was gone. I wanted to reach them. I wanted to tell them I was still aware. Jesus looked at me once more. This time I understood that I was being given something I had not earned. Mercy. Not because I deserved it. Not because my past could be erased by my own efforts, but because I was being given an opportunity to turn away from the hatred that had ruled my life and to live differently. The light around him grew brighter than before. Everything began to fade. The last thing I remember was his voice filling my entire being with words I have never forgotten. Go back. Tell them that truth without love becomes a weapon, but truth with love can change a heart. Tell them to seek God while there is still time. In an instant, the light disappeared. The peace gave way to pain. The silence was replaced by alarms. Air rushed into my lungs. My eyes flew open, and the first faces I saw were doctors staring at me in complete disbelief. The first thing I remember was pain. Not ordinary pain, but the overwhelming weight of returning to a body that had been shattered. My chest felt as though it had been crushed by stones. Every breath burned. My ears were filled with the sound of alarms, hurried footsteps, and voices shouting instructions I couldn't fully understand. Then I opened my eyes. Bright hospital lights blinded me for a moment. Faces leaned over me, their expressions frozen somewhere between fear and disbelief. A doctor looked directly at me, stepped back, and whispered something to another nurse. Within seconds, the room erupted into controlled chaos. "He's awake. Check his pulse. He's responding." I tried to speak, but nothing came out except a weak gasp. Tubes surrounded me. Machines were attached to my body. I could barely move my hands. One of the doctors stared at me, as though he had seen a ghost. Later, after I had regained enough strength to understand what had happened, they told me the truth. They believed I wasn't coming back. My heart had stopped. For a long time, they fought to revive me, while my family was quietly being prepared for the worst. More than one member of the medical team had already accepted that I would become another casualty of the explosion. But somehow, I was alive. My wife was the first member of my family they allowed into the room. The moment she saw my eyes open, she burst into tears. She held my hand so tightly, I thought she would never let go. Neither of us spoke for several minutes. Words were unnecessary. She had already mourned me in her heart, and now she was looking at a man who should not have been breathing. When my children visited days later, I couldn't stop crying. I remembered the promise I had made to bring my youngest son a small toy. Instead, all I could offer him was a trembling hand and a father who had returned completely changed. The doctors focused on healing my body, but they had no idea something far greater had happened. Jesus had healed something inside me that no surgeon could ever reach. As my physical strength slowly returned, another battle began, a battle inside my own mind. How could I tell anyone what I had experienced? How could a man known for opposing Christianity suddenly tell people that he had encountered Jesus? Who would believe me? Who would think I had lost my mind? Every possible outcome terrified me. I knew some friends would abandon me. Others would accuse me of betrayal. Some might even consider me an enemy. For weeks I remained silent, replaying every moment of my experience over and over again. I searched for another explanation. Perhaps it had been a dream. Perhaps my injured brain had imagined everything. But the more I tried to explain it away, the more impossible that became. Dreams fade. Hallucinations create confusion. What I experienced left absolute clarity. The hatred that had driven me for years was simply gone. No one had argued me into changing. No one had threatened me. No one had persuaded me. The man who entered that explosion never returned. The man who opened his eyes in that hospital was someone entirely different. As I recovered, I found myself opening the Bible again, not to search for arguments this time, but to search for truth. Passages I had once read only to criticize now seemed filled with meaning I had completely overlooked. They were no longer words on paper. They reflected the mercy I had experienced. For the first time in my life, I understood that genuine strength is not found in making people fear you. It is found in loving, even when hatred seems easier. I began reaching out to people I had wronged. Some refused to speak with me. Others listened with suspicion. A few simply walked away. I didn't blame them. If our roles had been reversed, I might have reacted the same way. But I could no longer live the life I had once defended. Every opportunity I had to spread anger became an opportunity to encourage peace instead. Every conversation that once ended in division became an opportunity to speak with humility. I stopped trying to win arguments. I started praying for changed hearts, beginning with my own. Many people ask me the same question wherever I share my testimony. Are you trying to attack Muslims? My answer is always the same. No. I am not here to condemn anyone, or to mock the faith in which I was raised. I know there are people from every background who sincerely desire peace, justice, and compassion. My testimony is not about declaring myself better than anyone else. It is about admitting how wrong I was about my own heart. The greatest enemy I faced was not another religion. It was the hatred I allowed to grow inside me. That hatred blinded me to truth, convinced me I was righteous, and nearly destroyed my life. If Jesus had not shown me mercy, I have no doubt I would have continued walking that same path until my final breath. That is why I tell this story, not to create fear, not to provoke arguments, not to divide people, but to testify that God's mercy reached a man who believed he was beyond correction. If he could transform someone like me, then no heart is beyond hope. So wherever you are watching from today, I want to ask you one question. If this were your final day on earth, would you be ready to stand before God exactly as you are? Don't wait for an explosion. Don't wait for a hospital bed. Don't wait until the next breath is no longer guaranteed. Examine your own heart. Turn away from bitterness, pride, and hatred. Seek truth with humility. Ask God to reveal Himself to you with sincerity, and follow wherever that truth leads. I never imagined I would tell this story. In fact, I once would have done everything possible to silence someone who did. But after dying and returning, I can no longer remain silent. My name is Rashid Ahmad Khan. This is my testimony, and I pray that my second chance will help someone else find theirs before it is too late.